All right, everybody, I just started the recording. I want to welcome you to the last of this season's Zoom Meet the Winemaker calls. We have Benoit Marguet here as our special guest. I want to quickly go over just some guidelines for you. I think most of the people on here have been to these before, but I know Frank is getting very famous on Instagram, and so he's pulling a few newbies over to these things where we get a chance to meet these growers. Just so that we all have the same guidelines, we use the chat throughout the presentation so that we can discuss any wines that we're drinking, or if there are some questions that you don't want to present at the end, you can put those there. Go right to once we have the presentation, I introduce Frank first, Brad says something, and then Benoit can present to us. And then we will have questions and answers at the end. I, in fact, already talked to Frank about one big question I have when we were looking at the maps. Use the raise hand function, which for most people, if you're on a computer, it's near the participants section. There's a little raise hand function. We'll do that at the end. And then we can just call on you and unmute you so that you can speak directly with Benoit, ask your question, and then mute you back up and move to the next in line. And as I said, I'm recording this, so anyone who misses it or has to duck out early, no big deal. You can watch the recording, which we will post on YouTube later. Benoit is struggling a little bit with his microphone, so we're going to try to have him speak up. You might want to turn your volume up just a bit when he is presenting, because we were not able to figure out an external microphone for him. But other than that, now I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and turn it over to Frankie.
Thank you, Todd. And I wanted to say, in connection with your comment, that I appreciate everything you've done for these events. Every single one we've done, you've been on, and you've helped me coordinate this so that I can think about the content and the guest and not worry about the other technical things. And you've also asked some really great questions along the way as well. So Todd, props to you, and thanks for everything you've done through this COVID disaster we've been living through. I also want to thank Brad, who's on today. Brad Baker's joining us from Michigan, and he will be adding to some of the content as well as the questions that we'll have for Benoit to understand him better in his craft. So Brad, thank you for all the participation, because you've been along the way for everyone as well, and I thank you for that. It's made them better. Thank you, Brad. So a little bit of a story here. I met Benoit back in 2018 when I visited. And I remember, I think that day I might've been at Miniere, which is up on the other side of Reims, and I was rushing to get back to Benoit, and I was 45 minutes late. And one of the things I hate most about, one of my pet peeves is things that are late, particularly when I'm late. So I rolled into Benoit that day. He already had a guest there. It was a family. And a man was tasting with him and brought his family. And Jill and I arrived, and Benoit was kind and gracious. I know that night he was taking his daughter to the movie. And so you had to go because recognizing I had wasted 45 minutes of my appointment being late. But you showed us around the barrel room. I got to understand some of your thoughts about energy and spirituality, which we'll cover today. We tasted several wines. I put a picture of that into some of my feeds that some of you have seen in the past 2 weeks. And it's been terrific to see that. So I appreciate being able to revisit with you, Benoit, and to do this again. Before I ask you to do a short presentation, and I'll give you a few things to think about, I also want to dedicate today to a charity that I've selected. And for every one of you that's on the session today, I'll make a $5 donation to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And if you're drinking a Marguet, I'd like you to post it in the chat, and I'm going to ask Frenchie to tally that, and I will double the donation if you have a bottle of Marguet open. As I do today, I have the 2014 Le Saint Remy open, and I've been sipping on this about the past half hour, and it's beautiful. So if you have a bottle, post it in the chat. And Benoit, you'll be able to see in the chat what people are drinking today if they have some of your wine open. So that's all I want to say to take up the time. I want to kick it over to Benoit. And Benoit, I think as we talked about when we discussed this with you maybe a week ago, why don't you go through some of the important dates for the winery, such as the amount of generations that have preceded you and the conversion in your farming practices and still use of your horses and the energy and the way you think about grape growing. Do you want to say a few things about that? That'll get us started.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry for the noise, but it's not very good tonight. This little book is talking about the history of my family. The family started somewhere around 1850 with 100 hectares. And very early as pioneers, my great-grandpa developed grafting on vineyards before phylloxera arrived in Champagne, 50 years before. As a result, the local officials stopped him because they considered in 1870 this was not a right way to support the appellation. The company has to replace the 100 hectares that have been replanted, grafted, in anticipation by my ancestors. And that cost a fortune, and so the vineyards were sold to Champagne Henriot in 1873. Just to remind the story about phylloxera, it arrives in Bordeaux in the 50s, in 1850, something like that, or maybe even before. And it reached Bordeaux, Languedoc, and Cognac. He knew it was going to come north, but it only arrived in Ambonnay in 1904, way after he started to graft. So that is a key date for the family, because the estate was sold, and it's another generation who started again in the 1900s. Myself, I am the 5th generation, and I'm living in the convent of Ambonnay. And actually, this convent was built by the family 40 years ago, and my grandparents were on the neighbor side of it. I took the estate in 2008. I took over after my parents in 2008. I was allowed by the whole family to start organic farming, biodynamic farming at that time. I could have done it myself before I was ready, technically speaking, but the family was not willing to see it yet. It was too early. I must say that back in the 90s, I came out of school in 92, and I went to work in Washington State as a winemaker in the Yakima Valley for 1 year, and it was really, really great for myself. I learned a lot, and when I came back, I developed my own negos, waiting till 2008 until my family released the family vineyard to myself.
So did you start farming organically in 2008, and then you went biodynamic in what, 2011?
2010. Yeah.
Okay. And the plots that let me show a map to the group. I want to let everybody see, because I kind of got ahead of myself. So I'm going to share my screen for a moment. And then I want to give people a sense of where we've been. So let me clear my banner out of the way. One moment, folks. So through all these sessions we've done with Marie Courtin and Bouet de Sorbet, Deu, Mousset, and then going back up north here, Villemar, Marguet, and then today in Marguet, we've made this large kind of 3/4 circle. So today, as we land on the map with Benoit, we're in Ambonnay, and here's Champagne Marguet. As I showed in some of the pictures, Benoit, I can't really show the face of the winery because I know you've done a lot of work. It's beautiful, but you're really right across the street from Champagne des Thunes, which is here on the corner.
Yeah.
And Krug Clos d'Ambonnay is behind this wall right here, and then right here is Parc, which is one of your single vineyard cuvées. Is that right?
Exactly. It's a little bit higher from the Clos d'Ambonnay. Clos d'Ambonnay is also a park. but it's walled, and the park continues just above, further north.
So there's the wall.
Yeah.
And your park is up here?
Yeah, if you keep going north, yeah, right, right here, can you see my here? Yeah, just below, no, this is au bout du clos. Yes, a little bit on the right, and that's mine. Yeah.
Right there. Okay. Okay. So then,
before, in the past, the wall was all around the section you show. Okay.
back to park here. 1 second.
And the top, the northwest part of this section, so just outside of this section, it's called au bout du clos, which means a plot called the end of the plot, the end of the clos, which is where Celos has got his vineyard.
So here?
Yeah, right. So historically, what you're showing was a clos of the chateau of Ambonnet, which was a feudal castle.
So I'll just show the other vineyards while I'm here. The one I'm drinking is Saint Remy, which is here. This is the one that's higher up on the slope. Is this your highest sloped Ludite here, this one?
No, we have another one on top called Les Aigremont, a little bit higher. Okay. Aigremont with an A.
Okay. So let me go back down the slope because I know someone's drinking Crayère. So let me show you Crayère. Crayère is back down here, going now towards Trapey, right?
This is Les Saint-Remy.
That's Saint Remy.
So lots of clay, red clay. And in Les Crayères, it's much more chalk and clear soil.
Let me stop sharing my screen so people can see you better, because right now, okay, there we go. So that's Crayère?
That's Crayère.
And the chalk at the bottom?
Very thin soil and clear soil.
Got it. Okay. Got it. So then, okay, what's the one in your left hand?
This is the Saint-Remy.
Okay. So that's this wine that I have here.
Yeah. So deeper soil, that's the historic side of Ambonnet where vines were planted since 1600. Because in Les Saint-Remy there was no frost. But it was more like a garden, an orchard. People grew vegetables, and occasionally there was a vineyard. Having the bottom slope of Ambonnet full of vineyards started to happen after World War II. And it really expanded after the 70s. At the same time, the clones arrived in Champagne in 75.
Let me see your other soils as we looked at the vineyards. Do you have some more soil samples there in front of you?
No, because the other one is very big and I cannot respond.
Okay, all right, okay. So when we think about Ambonnet, we think about the surrounding property and your Ludite there that you make all of these single vineyard plots from. What is the soil like there? Talk about the soil.
When I grew up, I asked people, what is it like here? Everybody answers, this is like that, this is like that. And it was pretty much the same everywhere. We had the opportunity to make holes with Claude Bourguignon, a famous geologist in France, and we opened the soils till the chalk, and things very different happened to us. And there is actually, in a short scale of less than a mile, there is a lot of different soils. From tuff, so tuffeau sand style, which is the case in the park, to some silex style, to limestone, very clayey as you saw in Les Saint-Remy, and if you go even higher, it's deeper clay on the west side of Ambonnet, so the side near Bouzy. while the eastern side of Ambonnet, on top of the hill, it's very chalky, very interesting, and we hit towards Trépaille, and so that's the reason why we can also grow a lot of interesting Chardonnay in Ambonnet. So as a whole, Ambonnet is a multitude of soil. But what's strong, what's better than anything else is the spirit of the location, the climate. It takes over the soil. So when a négoce comes to Ambonnet to buy some grapes from anywhere, still at the end, he will get the soul of Ambonnet. Me, I like to develop more in intimacy with those soil and with the special farming, with killers and so on. I think I can approach the philosophy of Burgundy by proposing something more personal, who still remains the cru of Ambonnet as a whole, but shows different personalities due to the soil and the microclimates. And I do it only for a matter of passion, of interest for the different origins. It's not a marketing approach in me. I always feel it was right to respect those origins rather than to always focus on the blend. And of course, these origins have special treats. They are coming from a massal selection first, and then at the pressing, we will separate some parts of each vineyard. We will do a selection within the selection. That's the case for Les Crayères, for Les Saint-Rémy, for Le Parc. And at the end, when we will bottle one of these, that will be a selection of the best barrel of the best grapes of each vineyard.
So for example, on Crayère there, the one that doesn't make the selection to go in Crayère, where does that go?
Everything is possible. There is no hierarchy. They are all kids. But one can be with a development that is more interesting as a cru, as a lieu-dit, for Sapiens or for Chaman. But they are all placed on the table. And one that is showing more developed will go for Chaman. One is showing possibly more austere, tighter. We go for a lieu-dit. It's amazing to think that the cinetic of the fermentation, the development of the fermentation in the barrels will give very different flavors together with the barrel itself. And so there is Les Crayères who can be a little bit in Chaman, in the cru of Ambonnet, and so on and so on.
I see. So it could end up in any of those bottlings. If it's not in Crayère, it could be in Chaman, it could be in the Ambonnet, Village bottling, etc., right?
It's a matter of coup de cœur. I don't know how to translate this. It's your heart who feels something special. But there is no commercial people who say to me, or sommelier who say, I want every year this or this. It's really something that I feel at the time of the blend, which is right now, actually. And it's totally living. Nothing is fixed.
I see. So you go based upon what you feel, what your sense tells you about what's right for that particular vintage. Is that right?
Yeah.
Are there some years where you haven't made Grand Rule, you haven't made Vermont because you didn't feel it in your heart that that vintage was representative of the structure and the heart of what needed to go in that single vineyard bottle?
Les Vermont is at the very bottom of Ambonnet. So if we were in Burgundy, you would call it Burgundy Bourgogne Blanc. You would not call it a premier cru or a grand cru. I can tell you that this is a Sélection Massal from 1952. And it's a fantastic vineyard to me. And to me, there is no hierarchy between the limestone of Les Vermonts to the upper middle coast of Les Saint-Rémy. They are just great and developing a different profile. However, some years we have frost in Les Vermonts, so we cannot do it as often as we could do Les Saint-Rémy. But possibly you may have a vineyard that is very tricky. I'm talking of La Grande Ruelle. La Grande Ruelle is a bottom hill, great profile of different clays, and it can be rotting a little bit if you get rain at the wrong time, or it can be over the top if you pick 1 day, 2 days too late, and this goes very quickly. So you always want to wait, and if you come, you see when you taste the wine in the barrel, it's a bit too late. You lose the soul of La Grande Ruelle. So it can still be the soul of Ambonnet as a cru, but it's not something special. So I don't do it necessarily always as a mule.
So there is no formula for you, is what I'm hearing, and it's what your sense and your heart tells you about what's best at that time and how much you will make and where those grapes will go. Is that fair?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. I was sharing the screen with the audience again because you were talking about Vermont and Grand Rule, which, by the way, the 12 Grand Rule was one of the best champagnes I have enjoyed in the past 3 or 4 years, and I still have a couple bottles of it left. It is just beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay. Les Vermonts, this is the one, Les Vermonts close to Bouzy. My Vermont is on the east of this. So yeah, where is your hand?
Over here.
You were close actually, but it was come back where you were. And if you get below that again, below, and below, and then on the right of the screen. Below, yeah. This is the down all the way down.
You're down here?
Yeah, all the way down here. And this is 120 meters above sea level. And I can tell you that if you come down at the bottom of the left of the screen, but not very far, that's the frost every year for sure. So sometimes people ask, why do you grow here and not here? Vineyards, there's not much to make a big problem.
If you have trouble with frost in Vermont, why do you keep committing to it? What about Vermont do you appreciate?
The soul of this vineyard from 1952. And the soil is absolutely unique. So yeah, it's something very special.
Is this the edge of the village here? Is this the edge of the village where the grapes are grown?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Brad, I want to stop for a minute because I've been doing a lot of talking about soil and vineyards. Do you have any questions for Benoit about anything we've covered so far?
Well, I think staying on the topic of the vineyards, and apologies for my voice, I've got a bad head cold, so my voice is slowly disappearing. The one thing, Benoit, that I've always found fascinating is, through history, you've been able to discover and see some of these sites, historically, even before they had modern vineyards planted on them, were considered very special. And there's almost energy and things like that people have noticed throughout the centuries that sit on some of these vineyard sites. Maybe there was a chapel on one at some point in time. Maybe they were celebrations on certain plots. I guess, can you talk a little about the different energies and things like that you see on some of these sites, or things that you've discovered that have just happened in the area over the centuries that have made maybe one site more special than another?
First of all, Frank asked me to do something from the vineyards or to move away with my phone. I'm very sensitive to energies, 4G, Wi-Fi. So there is nothing of this in the cellars. It's illegal for my employee to come with 4G. We are all with a cable in the office, and I feel the energies from the plant, from the minerals. This is something everyone can feel. We can all develop this. It's a matter of work. It's not just one or two people who can achieve this. Talking about the energy of the vineyard, I will talk rather about soul. A soul is a spirit that is incarnated, that is into a location, into a place. And we have a soul from the fact that the soil, the location, has a spirit that is coming into the vineyard and developing this habitat. And within the vineyard, we have, if it's Les Crayères, we have 10,000 different little vines, and they are all doing a community. They are all knowing each other. My neighbor is Francis Aiguille on the west, and on the east is Pierre Béthune. And you can feel right away when you walk from the different plots, you can feel right away that the soul is not the same. So you have the location, and you have the soul, which is the energy of the vineyard. And this energy comes from the history, how treated it was. It comes from the owner of it. Whatever I'm doing, wherever I am, my vineyard know me, and I can communicate with them. They can feel my intention, and my neighbor will be another way. So I often say to people, let's take Brad and myself half of my Crayères, and let's do the same spraying, the same work, same day. At the end, if we work all the way to the bottling together, but differently, each one taking care of its side, the wine will be different. Because consciously or unconsciously, Brad will bring his heart to it. And our hearts are the most powerful things, way above techniques. And our hearts are not are beautiful, but they are not vibrating the same way. So they will give different options, different expressions. And so that's the beauty of it. That's the magic part of it. And that's it.
Yeah, no, I think that's fascinating. And I know we've talked before about what makes one particular plot farmed by one person the same way as the plot right next to it. The soil is the same. Everything seems the same, but they're very different. And you can't logically explain it, but something is going on with, as you would say, the soul. And I think it's fascinating that you go in that direction, and not just in the vineyards, but in your winery. You have arranged everything, the placement, the feeling around where you think the energy is right to do different parts of the winemaking. I guess, can you talk somewhat about, you've rebuilt your whole winery around this vision that you've had and the attention to detail to getting it right so that the wines can be the absolute best from the soul and the energy of the winery and the people involved?
yes, I will talk about it. In the vineyards, I consider the location, the plot, each vine, as I would consider any of you, with the same respect, with the thinking that my thoughts can be understood, can be caught by the vines itself. So my behaving imprints the vines behaving. And so there's no difference for me between a human and between a vegetal, a mineral, or a wine in a barrel. And I've lived special intimate things that all of you can live if you work. I've lived like a shaman, times of communication with the vines, simply following meditation, simply by breathing, inhaling, exhaling, and listening to the silence. And then you can ask your question. Okay, what do you need? What should we do now? Is it too early or too late to pick? And you get answers. And it's absolutely fantastic. So that means that we have the power to communicate with everything in our surrounding. And today it's a trend. Today you have many books that are written saying trees communicate together. We start to understand this, but this has been known for centuries. Back in the winery, the idea was to make a new cellar who was like a house for myself and my family. So I would have to live well myself where I was going to place my press and my barrels. I would have to feel warm, to feel well, to feel air that is floating and not heavy. And so when I grew up in the 90s, at a time where people were in very classic studies, I just developed my own personality. Before the age of 10, I could feel the energy. And in the 90s, step by step, I pushed doors of different things I wanted to understand. That means geobiology. Geobiology is the electromagnetic influence of the terrorism, of the soil. Deep underneath, you have fractures in the chalk, you have veins of water. All this influence, magnetically speaking, electrically speaking, what's above you. So in Europe, the cathedral are placed on very specific telluric sign. The pyramids in Egypt, same. The pyramids in South America, same. The Taj Mahal in India, same. So all this knowledge was practiced by people who didn't have internet to communicate together, but who knew, who were sensible enough and knew where the places were right. And I simply applied it to my winery. And then I put over doors in terms of the construction itself by using special concrete. I make it simple, but using concrete with the water that has been with an information. You know, Tesla used to say, he used to say, if you want to understand nature, think of electromagnetic field. That means that this is even more important than learning biology or chemistry. So if you know that everything is into resonance, everything develops a vibration, and you can receive and give up vibration, it's really interesting that you come to build a winery that is in vibration with what you are going to do, wine and champagne. So while the builders were here, they were a bit scared of what I wanted to do. And this was about adding some things into the water used for the concrete in order to bring the building to a level of consciousness, to a level of vibration that is close to what I'm making. And everybody who comes in the cellar says, wow, we feel very well. It's something special. And so this is one thing among others, like also holy geometry, you know, the divine proportion, which are used on the estate for barrels, for rooms, for different things, and colors also. Colors have an energy, okay? Some, I see Michael, hello Michael. Michael's got a black shirt. If tomorrow I give him a yellow shirt, he will be a different man. And colors have a strong, very strong influence. This is why all my labels have some colors, and this is why all of them, all the labels are designed by geometry, holy geometry. There is this fantastic scientist called Masaru Emoto in Japan, who passed away 4 or 5 years ago, and he did many experiments using the same wine and removing the labels of the producer and putting a label saying dead with a skull, and on the second bottle, love with an heart. And people were tasting blind both bottles, we were the same wine, and found the difference of energy between the two. So talking of detail is an evidence for me. Detail is extremely important. Detail is not detail. Detail is an extra consideration, but it's extremely important. And so when we work in the cellars, we choose the days depending on the moon calendar, and then we think of verticality. So eventually we're using incense. Eventually we're using candles in order to call the local spirits to accompany us in the wrapping we want to do, the disgorgement we want to do, and so on. And so the position of the worker at the beginning of the day is ready to stop and say, hold on, be conscious about the beauty, the gift of nature, the beauty of what we have. And it's extremely important when you come from your home. You enter something that is another world. You prepare a liquid that people will have in their body. So you got to be in a position of positiveness. You got to be in a consideration of the wine, and I think my team is really aware about this, and I'm very thankful to them for because at the beginning it was not easy. When some of them had been working in different places, they could feel it's a little bit strange to think like that, just to imagine that the wine is like a human, and step by step we did change. The whole team did change. There was a reason behind that, and it's great. I love it.
I put on to Brad's question and your answer, I put on a picture that I took when I was there of the barrel with the drawing on it. Can you explain that again? Because I remember the story, but maybe the audience would like to know what that means.
Okay. Every representation on the pyramids, on the cathedrals, have an impact. If you take some water from the tap, and if you put a sticker on the bottle with good intention, you will raise the vibration, the frequency of the water. If you go to McDonald's, if you like McDonald's, you concentrate on the burger and you transfer something, an intention, positive things. You transform the industrial food into something more accessible for the vibration of your body. Now, talking of the barrel, as I said, from the same vineyard, from the same press, I get 4,000 kilos, who gives me 12 barrels. These 12 individuals can be very different from one to another, and at the time of the tasting, I see this, and possibly I can help some of them by different presentation or drawings or tricks, because this is the symbol of a spiral. So the spiral for me is an upper is a connection, it's the verticality. So the larger part of the spiral is the bottom, and the middle one is the sky, and I can accompany a barrel this way. That's one among others. Meditation is possible, communication with the barrel, and so on. But I have 350 barrels, so it's also a lot of work. And so it's just an intention of love and where we want to. But I mean, this is not esotericism, okay? This is not, how do you say, a witch? No, that's right. Sorry?
Witchcraft? We say witchcraft.
Yeah, it's not witchcraft. I've been experiencing this many times with different people here at the. I mean, if you say yourself, okay, Benoit Marguet is crazy. He told us this is going to be different after we do that trick. It's not going to work because you don't do it consciously. But if you really concentrate, you taste the glass of wine looking west, and you feel the energy, and you respect, and you turn yourself to the east. You wait a little bit, you concentrate, you taste, and you respect. You'll see the taste is not the same. If you taste with your shoes, or if you taste the same wine without your shoes, your connection to the earth is not the same. And so there are many things like that, you know, classic winemakers who tells you you are a little bit stupid, or you are esoteric or whatsoever. But it's simple, it's simple, it's life, and it's easy to do for everyone.
That was good. Brad, I'm glad you drew that out, because I've been thinking a lot about this, the energy. And when you go into Benoit's winery, this was in 2018, you know, you see the candle and the images or the statues of the Buddha arrayed throughout the barrels. I mean, there is intention there for what you're trying to create and your beliefs and what you want people to understand about you. So I thought how you explained that to me was very good. Can I change the subject for a moment? I know we're at 10:45. I want to ask one or two more questions, and then I want to open it up to questions from the audience. Do we have a little more time?
Yes.
So let's talk about dosage and sulfur, because I know that various wineries have different beliefs or intention about dosage, how much, what kind of dosage is used. Even talking with Cedric Mousset about the kind of sulfur that he uses from the volcano, as he called it. So what has brought you to the place where you think about it this way?
When you cut your finger and we put somebody else's finger, it's hard. Sometimes it doesn't work. Your body doesn't want somebody else's body. Anytime you inject something in the wine, it's another energy that you bring into it. It's something you force. It's not something natural. And it's the same when you do a blend of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. When you blend them together, it's not something natural. You can prepare that. You can help. You can accompany the meeting of the two parts. So it's not a forced wedding, but they know each other before you do the physical blend. That is energetically speaking. Now, I mean, maybe I'm lucky. When I get a cigarette when I was a kid, I get sick. When I got a pot when I was a kid, I get sick. And when I'm getting two wines that are with not so natural, I don't feel well necessarily right away or the days after. So I feel it was not right for me to use a lot of incorporation, a lot of things. So chaptalization is forbidden on the estate, because when you add some sugar to the must, you transform the verticality of the must. You transform the spin of the must. You modify its frequency. And so that's one step that is important. That means you have to accept when a vintage is lower in alcohol. You got to look for a maximum of maturity. Some years it's more difficult, but we get it. And then using sulfite at the stage of pressing happens on my estate only when it's necessary. So, and it only happens at the pressing. So some years, I mean, we check things overnight, we leave the must on the air, we see how it evolves, and so on. And we know that we have to use a little bit, or we know that it's okay, we can avoid it. My work is to avoid it, and I think that's the future of wine. I don't think we should be afraid of it. We have developed a winery where everything is done by gravity, while my soil is all flat. So it was just a new concept of things. And you know, in Champagne, where traditionally you separate cuvée, first juice, and time, second juice, here on the estate, we keep everything into one. Because this division is also a problem, energetically speaking. We have one berry, and we don't want two juice. It's not something natural. So those two juices are kept together and will bring one to the other things they are missing. And if you separate them, so then reblend them, possibly, that is not going to work at all. It's too late. So the second juice, the tang, are full of phenol, which are very interesting against oxidation. And they are helping a lot to turn down the level of sulfite or to stop sulfite. And as you saw, we got a result with Sapiens, which is probably the only prestige champagne which has Thai into it, and the tasting are fantastic. And so if I keep on during the winemaking, nothing will be added except a little bit of clay for the fining at the reading. So for the disgorgement, for the reading and disgorgement, but no fining during the winemaking, and no sulfur added at the disgorgement, neither sugar, because you are going to modify the energy, the speed of the origin this way. That's everything I'm doing is very challenging locally. You could think we're in 2020. What Benoit Marguet is doing is easy. When you move to be in biodynamic 10 years ago, you are stupid, you are crazy. And when you move to have egg barrels, you are stupid, you are crazy. When you have no sulfite, when you have no dosage, most people don't go for no dosage because they are scared. 10 years ago, we were at 7 grams of sugar. And one day, one of the wines looked great at 5. And suddenly, a few months after, the other ones wanted 5 as well. And it's like they were communicating together. And every year we get down. And one was ready, and then the other one followed. The community was going together. And one day we moved them from 2 to 0. And then that's also the mind of the producer. Many producers don't do it because they think of you. They don't trust their wine, their vines. They don't trust their wine. They think the customer is not going to like it. It's not possible. But yes, it is. If you believe this is the origin, if you believe this is right, if you believe it's not normal to add something like sugar in wine, things happen to be right and to be in balance and to be in harmony. And then you hear all these guys saying, well, if you don't have sugar, the wines won't age well. Total bullshit. Total bullshit. Things are happening elsewhere. The potential of aging is not a matter of using cuvée in a prestige champagne. The potential of aging is not a matter of using sulfite and sugar at the disgorgement. It's in the vineyard. It's in your winemaking, in the aging with the lees. It's in your love, in your communication, and it's in the vintage also. So I've been learning a lot with that. It's absolutely fantastic because, you know, I have the basics in terms of studying, and today I do the opposite of what I studied at the School of Addis or at the university. And it was happening like it was normal. I questioned myself, but I also let it go. I also learned to let it go and not to stress, because my way of doing was kind of right, nature speaking. It happened to be without problems for the wine, and I'm grateful. Gratitude.
Well, and I think it translates into your wines because I continue to buy them every vintage, all of them, because they're all different. Some vintages I like more than others. For example, I've now opened all the 2014s. I wouldn't say all of them. All of the Ambonnet-based Boudides, I've opened them all. 2014 to me seems like a very structured, energized vintage. The wines have a lot of power, but they seem to be tight. They need a lot of air and a lot of care and time. 2012 is different. 2012 to me have always seemed more opulent, beautiful, balance, just gorgeous. So it is what the vintage gives you, I suppose, isn't it? and then you make it from there.
Yeah. I mean, I can see all your faces. You are all different. And so we should not rate the vintage. We should see every year as a gift of nature. And if we don't get a 2013 with a harvest in October, we don't know what it's like to get a 2011 with August harvest. 2011, which 90% of Champagne was not, I mean, Champagne people said it was not the best vintage. And in my opinion, it's a fantastic one. So we have to thank all those situations and welcome the opulence of 12, the structure of 14, the austerity of 88, the sun, the generosity of 89, and so on and so on. And there's beauty in everything. There's beauty in every part. In that kind of natural champagne, I would say. If you look for a standard wine, that's different. We want a similar taste on a full moon day, on a decreasing moon day. We have wines that are sensible, and we like that. But they still have an origin that is very present. And me,
Can you, before we quit, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were finished. I interrupted you. Go ahead and finish.
I don't see the champagne like you may like it. At the time of blending, my way of blending is possibly totally different from the choices you would do. So what I'm searching is for myself. I'm not looking at pleasing a taste of somebody, but I love the wines with short autolysis, because the autolysis is going to suck some energy of the origin. So that's the concept of the cru and the beauty. And I like, because if you give too much autolysis, you lose a little bit of it. And I like the wines to be on the tension, probably much more than you do. And when I hear the people saying, wow, we got a 2008, Les Crayères, it was fantastic and so on, I'm sure. But me, I prefer them very young. And what's interesting is taste is a matter of consciousness. So the planet is turning, and the consciousness of the people is rising, and the taste is changing. So the wines I have done, the wines I am making, may not be possible 20 years back, and the wines I made 20 years back may not be enjoyed today at all. So we all progress, we all develop, and we don't know what will be the future like. We don't know what we will like in the future. So we got to let things go when we don't understand a natural wine, because we may love it in 10 years. We may not be ready now to understand what's going on. And so in that philosophy, I'm doing wines, new wines, released this year for some of them, which are illegal. So I should not talk on this, because this is purity. And I don't want the official to know it. It's too late. But I think by opening doors, you can, in the future, touch different energies and develop something different. Think that in 1700, champagne was half of the bottle was removed, half of the bottle was removed in 1750 and replaced by dosage. Okay, where are we now? So we don't know where we will be tomorrow, and it's fascinating to say we respect the appellation, fine, but the appellation is old, and we can open doors to joy, to different energies, and with respect for the appellation. And so we'll talk about it more when you'll be in my office.
That's right. We'll talk more about that other subject when I'm there, and when Brad's there, and some of you else when you want to visit. All right. In respect of time, it's 5 after 11 here in Los Angeles. Frenchie, let's turn over to questions, and let's run through those and let the audience interact with Benoit before we close up for the day.
Sounds good. Okay, I saw a couple good questions come in just recently. So Jennifer and John both, and anyone else who has a question, this is the time to use your raise hand function. Again, depends on what device you're on. It's either by the participants, or I think it's in, if you're on a mobile device, it's up, there's like a 3 bars or 3 dots where it is. Try to find the raise hand, and then I'll call on you, unmute you. And then we'll go from there. It looks like John's first. And I'm going to ask to unmute you, and then you unmute yourself. And go ahead and ask a question. John, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Benoit, you said that you were real concerned about the wines, the way they come together. And my question concerns when you're disgorging, if you went to where there was no dosage in the wine that you top the bottles up with, did that affect your decision about which wine to use at disgorgement?
At disgorgement, we refill the bottle with the same wine.
Oh.
Okay, so if we have 2,000 bottles of Verzenay bottle, maybe 1,900 will be released because 100 will be used for topping up. Did that answer your question?
John, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't really hear it exactly. So, but I got the part about he's using the same wine that's in the bottle to top it up, and just no dosage is added to it when it gets put in. So,
yeah.
Thank you, Benoit. Thank you.
Disgorge for topping up.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, the next question is from Jennifer, who has, I think she said 6 people, and they are drinking 3 of your wines right now.
Oh.
Go ahead, Jennifer, you're on.
Yeah, we also enjoy, we're drinking the 2014 IE, and we also enjoy Helen LaBeouf from that same area. Do you know how close your vineyard is to Helen LaBeouf's?
I don't understand. How close are my vineyards from?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
There's another producer close by to you that he was asking, Helen LaBeouf.
No. I don't know either. You know, I found 10 hectares in Ambonnet and Bouzy. And all the other cru I am proposing are from other friends' estate, with the same philosophy as mine, because they are exclusively certified organic biodynamic grapes. So IE is from a little vineyard. I'm trying to find again the name. There are 2 vineyards actually, but it's on the western side of IE. And it's coming from Philippe Lancelot, from Cramont.
I'm going to try to find out to see if we can get that producer, to see if we get the information. Frank, I wanted to remember the question that we were talking about right before Benoit got on, in terms of, yeah. let's go share that map, because that my question. I really want to find out what's going on there.
So let me get back over to the village. Hang on a minute. So Todd, why don't you ask the question and I'll put the visual.
Yeah, so there it is. There's the spot. Okay, so Benoit, there is one of the most expensive plots of vineyards in Champagne, which is where Krug gets Clos d'Ambonay. Why is there a giant sandlot of the exact same size with nothing in it right next to it? How isn't, if that's the most expensive plot of land basically in all of Champagne, why is there a big blank space?
From what I know, the left part is planted in 85, and they decided to remove the right part a year ago to replant with new vines.
So it's just in that particular satellite picture was taken after they had pulled it. Okay.
Very recently, very recently.
I mean, it's still, when you talk about the cost per, per hectare there, or having an unplanted plot right next to it, even for 1 year, costs a lot of money. Do you have any idea why that's such an expensive plot too? Down at the bottom of the hill, walled off. Do you have any idea?
Say it again, Todd.
Do you have any idea why that plot and why the fruit from that plot is so expensive?
No, I should not talk about a friend, a neighbor, but it's always something special to have a vineyard inside a clos. That's a kind of a myth. Now, personally, I don't see much difference.
Yeah, it's mostly because it's within the walled clos is why it is expensive. It's a name, it's a brand.
Yeah, that creates a microclimate, microterroir, which is unique because no one else can have it. And then it's the magic of the farmer, the magic of the winemaker, who pulls it to the stratospheric taste. And
yeah. Leave it at that.
Yeah. So Todd, the value of that plot isn't really any different from any other in Ambonay. It's the same land value. Now it's different selling price in bottle, but the value of that land isn't really any different. A slight premium for being a clos, but it's still Grand Cru Ambonay.
Okay.
And what's really interesting, and I won't go into too much detail, but before Krug bought that those grapes used to go into non-vintage champagne.
yes.
So it's just basically they just decide, okay, we're going to use this fruit and we're going to create something that's crazy expensive and people will buy it because it's exclusive.
Put a wall around your backyard, call Krug.
Nice. My backyard's pretty small. I don't know how many vines I could get back there.
But the wine is very good. And again, it's very interesting that Benoit said that Clos d'Ambonay is part of Le Parc. It was never Clos d'Ambonay until Krug took it over. It was just Le Parc, which used to be the old Le Clos. I mean, the real Clos is all of Le Parc.
Yes.
Yeah, the
sense.
real Clos was all of Le Parc at that time?
Yeah, so you could basically say Le Parc was a Clos. It's just over time the wall came down and Clos was never in the name, but Le Parc technically, historically, is a Clos.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. Todd, we have other questions?
We don't have any other questions right now unless someone else wants to raise their hand.
While we wait,
watching.
I think you brought up all the Sapiens on your table. Do you want to show that?
I was going to ask that one, Frank. I think that's an interesting.
Hey, Frank, turn off your screen share, Frank.
Okay, I got it. Thanks.
Yep.
Will be released in 8 years. That's Magnum, and that's the new Enotech 2008 of Sapiens.
Different color label.
And we are preparing a Sapiens Rosé as well.
Very good.
Yeah, so on that Sapiens there, Benoit, I guess when I first heard what you were doing, taking Chardonnay from David Leclepar and Meunier from Vincent Laval, I thought, how will this work? Two growers, good growers, you're going to mix their wine. This must all be marketing. And then I tasted the wine, and it is freaking fantastic, out of this world good. What made you think this would work? To me, it's crazy.
I mean, they are not suppliers, and they are friends before, and they are really people with a true connection, a true soul. They are high personality, if you know them. They are very different, but great people. And beside that, they are very sensible, and their grapes are giving a lot of precision, whether it is the Meunier of Vincent Laval or the Chardonnay of Trépaille of David de Capar. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, it doesn't mean that the mixing, as you call it, the blend, is happening without work. There's a lot of presentation between the parts. They are not blended at the harvest. They are still in barrels till 15 days before bottling, and we will blend following an order. Ordering blending will affect the taste. So let's imagine we have, I don't know, 6 barrels of Trépaille. One can be giving more tightness, one can be giving longer attitude, one can be with a good beginning in the mouth. So when we will put the barrels together in one tank, we these skills of each will be in the order of blending. So when we build the wine, we think of the development in the mouth. Okay, and this is very, very important. And then we decide whether we want to, for example, place a Meunier or a Pinot Noir. But when we do the blend by racking, by siphonating, it's not by pump, siphonating, we may start with a Pinot Noir barrel, then move with 2 Chardonnay, add a barrel of Pinot Meunier, another Chardonnay, another Meunier, continue with Chardonnay, and finish with Pinot Noir. And we think in that, in the development in our mouth of the wine. This is very special.
I have to try that sometime. I have yet to try that wine. Maybe next time I visit, you can pour me a little bit of that to try.
All right, next question we got from Sean. Sean, I'm going to ask to unmute you. You can go ahead and unmute yourself then.
Thanks, Dan. I think I've asked this same question every time, but which producers, when you were sort of younger or growing up and starting to establish your thoughts or styles, what producers inspired you to drink? And also, when you are drinking other people's champagnes now, aside from your own, what do you reach for? Which winemakers do you sort of respect and get inspiration from as well?
I don't want to feel to seem in too much in my community, but as I said, I am very sensitive to what I'm eating and what I'm drinking. So on my own, I'm very careful with. I'm using very little meat or no meat, vegetables and so on a lot. And it's always from our garden, and except when I go to restaurants and so on. And for the drinks, it's the same. I will drink wines from friends who farm organically or biodynamically. And I've been inspired by people outside Champagne first, Pufnay in Jura, Ostertag in Alsace, Lafarge in Volnay, Trappet, many people like this, and Claude Leflèvre, which I visited a lot. And if in my background of tasting, I've been experiencing, I've been buying, I've been tasting, I've been finding many champagne back to 1900s. I've been drinking dozens of 1914, 28, 30, and so on and so on. It was my pleasure at the time. Nowadays, I will enjoy the wines of friends like Bertrand Gautreau, like Benoit, Hugues Godnet, people like this, Vincent Laval, of course, David Lecapard, Cédric Mousset's got fantastic wine as well. And I'm close to my conviction. I'm close to my, I'm looking for something special.
That's a fascinating answer, actually. I mean, Sean does ask it each time, and most of the time, the answers are not very extensive. And it's fascinating to me that the first makers he mentions are all outside of Champagne too. That's fascinating to me.
Because at the time, they were ready before we were. At the time, outside of Champagne, you could find people who were searching before Champagne really started. And so the way I'm making Champagne is wine making, in the sense that if you want to avoid sugar at the disgorgement, ahead you have to work in the vineyard, old vineyards, yield control, and then in the winemaking, you have to be with lees contact, no racking. And so I learned a lot from the outside of Champagne to be able to make not Champagne, but wine of Champagne. And what is the difference between Champagne and wine of Champagne? Champagne, you add something at the disgorgement. That's the style of it. Wine of Champagne, after bottling, you don't add anything, which is still different from Coteau Champenois, which is a still wine. I don't know if you get that.
I have some
no, we do.
In my cellar still.
Say again, Frank?
I have this Coteau Champenois in my cellar. We don't see it very often. I have a 2015, I think, in my cellar. I'll have to pour that wine sometimes.
I really believe that the future of Champagne is Coteau Champenois. Champagne is some sort of artificial. By the construction of the sparkling, you do a second fermentation, which is not natural. You use sugar, you use yeast again, and it's some way it transforms, not just physically by developing bubbles, but it transforms the substance, and a lot. And for me, it can be also a frustration. And I love the still wines of Champagne because I think they leave you light. And not that they are light in alcohol or whatsoever, but the freshness gives you always some good energy. And I believe there is a true future for these wines. That's the challenge.
Interesting. All right, that's all we have for questions. Frank and Brad, you want to close it up, wrap it up for everybody?
Yep. Brad, you want to make a comment before I wrap it up? He's on mute.
All right, there it goes. I'm off mute now. Sean had an add-on to his question that I think kind of follows up also what Benoit was just saying. And maybe Sean, if you want to ask that, and maybe Benoit can answer your question there.
Sure, sorry. Just one quick question. Do you think, I mean, not so much now maybe with climate change, but do you think the sort of marginal or difficult climate of Champagne is one of the reasons why we're seeing more producers in other regions, in France and elsewhere, moving to organic or non-intervention, while more Champagne producers are, or at least to my knowledge, sort of hesitant to pick up on organic or other farming, or is it a cultural thing?
Both because the development of the weather today is not necessarily making it easier than in the past. I mean, in the recent past, because before the 60s, I think climate was tougher than today. But we can have, mild winter. We can have lots of frost in the spring today. We can have heavy showers in the summer. It's not the case this year. It was not the case the year before, but 16 and 17 were really tough. So I think people feel that without you telling them necessarily, but by themselves, the new generation cannot cope with the old standards. The new generation are feeling closer to the nature, not all of them, but some. And organic farmers in Champagne, we are 2%. If we can be 10%, that would be great. But still, there's a lot to do. But the new weather will affect the wine. That's for sure. Will develop more alcohol. But this is the case for everybody, I guess, around the planet. So we have to do with it. Some people are using cooling system on the press. Me, I'm more letting things following. I imagine in my cellars a cold temperature, which is natural, but when it comes June, July, it's a little bit higher, and I feel the wine deserve to receive the summertime temperature, the cooler temperature in the winter, even though they are low or without sulfite. I think it's a way of protecting the juice and the wine also, that to teach the substance about it. But for sure, this new weather is really pushing people to decrease the amount of sugar in the disgorgement.
Okay, Sean, does that answer your question? Okay. Brad, just a closing comment?
No, I just want to say, thank you, Benoit. I mean, your positivity and your energy even comes through over the computer. I feel better now that I talked to you. So thank you. My voice is getting better now too. So I think everything you shared, it's fascinating, and it makes me want to drink more Marguet wines. It wants me to get back to Champagne to come visit you again. So thank you for spending your evening with us. And again, wonderful, wonderful wines that you pour your heart and soul into.
Thank you.
I just want to say that my work consists in accompanying the beauty of nature. My work consists in being aware that people will get in their body the beauty of nature. That's all that's my job. Ready to be in this respect, in this consideration of the beginning, of the origin, and the final customer. And I do myself. I don't try to do something else, I just do myself.
Well, it comes through in your wines, and as Brad said, I got to meet you in 2018, and we didn't get to spend a lot of time together, but I've kind of stayed in touch with you. And like Brad said today, I've gotten to know you better. I understand how you think about things and why you do the things you do. And I hope the rest of the audience has that appreciation too now as well for you, and you know, for these lovely wines that you're making. And you know, as we say, thank you, America, thank you, and God bless, and keep up the great work.
Merci beaucoup. That's a new one next year. Next year.
Thank you. Thank you. I was looking at that on the map today when I was preparing. Is that one high up on the slope too?
Sorry?
Isn't it located towards the forest?
The top east of Albany.
Great. That's another bottle from my cellar, I think, I guess. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we can compare it to Eric Rodez's version from the same vineyard.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Todd, how many people did we get pouring Marguet today? Did you count?
Yes, if we include you, we have 10.
All right, 10.
10 bottles. 10 bottles, yeah.
Well, what if I said I'm going to open 20 cases later? Frank's got to pay for it, right?
Sure, why not? I'll make the donation this afternoon. Benoit, thank you for supporting Wine Berserkers and our friends on Instagram, and God bless. Have positive energy, and thank you for your time tonight on a Saturday, and everyone be safe and well.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Benoit.
Merci, bye-bye.